So I am here with Lauren Dickinson of Orion Retreats. She is the founder and CEO, boss lady of Orion Retreats. She has a super incredible vision about retreats of the future and pioneering efforts for combining embodiment practices and intriguing systems like human design. So I thought she would be the perfect person to have on the podcast. How are you, Lauren?
I'm good, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to see your zone of genius here.
Well, I'm excited to dive into your chart as well. We've known each other for about a year now. We've been collaborating to various degrees, and you don't know much about your chart, so I'm excited to share with you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I think I know the highlight reels of the human design, and I all of this is just like so fascinating.
Well, and to go off of that, this is kind of a very cryptic image, but what it comes down to is this is an aura reading. So it communicates how your energetic presence is in the world. Once you learn what the colors mean and what the numbers mean ultimately, and when things are connected or not, which we will go into. But what I like about this system is that you can use it to figure out why you're feeling tension in your body,
Mm,
or you can identify these places within the auric field because these are chakras almost. So there's definitely a big embodiment component to all of this very like intellectual stuff too.
mm,
So for me, it's kind of the best of both worlds. Here we have a defined energy center, and anywhere you see a colored in shape within the body graph, each of these 9 centers, when they're colored in, that means that there is energy emitting from that chakra. So it's kind of like a speaker, always putting out this consistent energy. The white, on the other hand, these operate more so like microphones. So they're receiving the energetic presence of others with a defined activated center, or they're absorbing things from the solar system and the transits and what they're doing because we're never disconnected
mm.
from our solar system.
Is that my spleen chakra all lit up on the right side there?
That is not, no, no, this is your solar plexus. So this is the center providing that emotional authority
Mm.
that you just learned you have.
It all comes full circle.
Yes. And it can be quite a realization human design body graph reading can give you because it can help validate experiences of your life and give you a tool to help navigate uncertainty you may have or just resistance that you encounter. So, yes, here we have the solar plexus
That's
connected
interesting.
to
I just
the sacral.
oh, slip access.
So the sacral center in human design is quite significant. Anyone that has an activated sacral is a generator aura type.
Okay.
This is the body's largest motor. So when there's a life force energy there all the time, it creates a difference within the whole aura. So the sacral center operates kind of like a vortex and it brings things to it, like a whirlpool. So the way it operates is it responds to life, it responds to things coming to it. And it does that before the mind can get in the way. So that is what is called a sacral response. And all generators, that generative force within them, they have access to that.
I definitely need that type of response before things get into my head. I tend to be an overthinker.
Well, you have quite an activated head Ajna center. So I would not doubt that.
Mm,
And you can see that the sacral and the solar plexus, they're not connected with the head and Ajna,
mm,
which can be a tremendous gift. It's a source of wisdom to have these two modes of being in the world. But when maybe the mind overpowers that sacral emotional intelligence that you have as well, I can see where you could get hung up and
mm.
the overthinking the fixedness in maybe the way you approach things sometimes. That's what that reveals.
Hmm.
And also, so we have colored in shapes and white shapes. We also have black and red connection points between two energy centers. Here, we have what is called a channel of energy between these two energy centers, and it's half red, meaning it's half unconscious. The black represents a much more on the surface understanding, recognition of this energy. So half of it is something that you can access, this emotional response that is consistent for you all the time. But there is something that is happening under the level that your mind can really access all the time. So when I see a channel like this, sometimes it's difficult to recognize this sacral response, something that is very sacred to the generator. I did want to go over what this channel might mean for you. It is the only one of its kind that is able to connect this fertile, robust, very dynamic energy of the sacral with this deep well of emotional intelligence. It's the only channel of its kind. So here we have the channel. This is the channel of mating. It's a design focused on reproduction or producing new things. It's one of the most creative energies within the entire body graph.
That makes sense.
It has the ability to just create newness. So,
That makes sense.
um,
As an artist and as a creator, that is right up my alley. Everything that I do is focused around what are we creating? What kind of new earth are we creating? My whole podcast, Creating New Realities, it's all about what we are here to create. And in a holistic way, it's a gentle reminder to me, what am I here to create? I
yeah,
don't have kids. You would think with a chart like that, I'd have 10 by now, but I must be mothering things in other ways.
it's a very procreative, whatever that means for you, energy. I wanted to point out, since this system is largely based in astrology, it's not quite exactly the same as a tropical natal reading, of course, but the planets are involved. And the six we have here is imprinted by Mercury. And since this is a black marking, this is something that you are you're consciously able to work with. And I wanted to point this one out in particular because here we have the peacemaker. And we have an upward facing triangle, which means this position is in an exalted position. So a little snippet here. The highest form of reason is that life is sacred. The emotional power to end conflict tempered by feelings and sensitivity to others.
100%. That is exactly how I like to operate. And it's interesting in the Enneagram, I'm a type 9, which is also the peacemaker.
Really?
Yeah, peace is like everything to me. I don't want people to be unhappy both with me or me to have that friction with them. Like you can have so many more solutions available to you when you're coming from a place of peace versus conflict.
Yes. And since this is in a position that has to do with your communication and the way that you think about things in the Mercury position, that is inherent in the way you're communicating to prospective retreat members with this new retreatpreneur
Yeah.
program, like how you're progressing through not only that, but all facets of the projects and relationships. Here we have the line 6. And each of these positions has a decimal point that further kind of like gives detail to it. And the 6th line is called the role model. Every 6th line that you see in a chart has this energy of a role model potential. And it's the highest that one can go within this energy. So the gate 6 here, kind of a hierarchy. The gate name is actually called friction and conflict, but it being this like role model within that state, it's actually the peacemaker.
Mm.
So it's not like you don't have experience or wisdom about the conflict and the friction that can occur. It's just that you are aware of how to create a peaceful environment at the end of the day.
Mm. Gosh, I love that. I love that.
What I like about Neutrino platform, I use this for most of the professional work that I do, is you have the ability to access the original Rave I Ching as well.
Mhm.
So each of these lines kind of has a different version that is closer to the original transmission that the founder received. So here we have finding solutions that are just for all parties involved.
Mm.
Ultimately, this is a part of a tribal circuitry. So there's a keynote, an emphasis on support. How are you able to support others?
Mm.
And how are you feeling supported in return?
Mm. That's exactly what my company is. That's interesting.
Yes. And within the body where you're feeling it, it's within this emotional awareness in the solar plexus. On the body graph, it's here to the right, but mystically, sensationally, for me and many others, we still feel it above the belly button in that region, just that between the heart and that sacral center.
Now, a question for you. Like a big part of my why for creating Orion retreats was to create safe and supportive environments like these containers of retreats for people to feel accepted, nurtured, safe, really in a place where they can drop down and drop their guard so that they can do the inner work with a guide or just be in the environment where they can go through the work themselves. And so that really taps on the shoulder of that tribal ideas. I think that what this is bringing up for me is like having the thought like, well, if you feel like you need to be part of a community, do you feel like you've been cast out of another community? And
Mm.
everyone fundamentally needs that feeling of that they're accepted somewhere. And I think that that's really why I created what I created, because I want people to feel that on a very fundamental level. And maybe that sacral emotional level, people need to feel that. And that can be very healing.
It is very healing. Yes. And
Mm.
that is not the only place within your chart that I see a lot of healing potential and things that are actually tangible efforts to make this a material reality for people, not just navel gazing or in their head. It's something that embodiment practices are so important for you because you realize like there's a purging that takes place and something that you can see in your outward environment how the inner work is changing you. So I think it's important for your efforts and your vision with your design to have this material reality as well to it, just building off of that.
Thank you. That so touches on what my coach and I've been working on is the embodiment, the outer match the inner, but yeah, the embodiment stuff. That's huge. And for someone like me, I think that early in my life, not knowing what I don't know again still, but like looking at my charts, like I definitely had a very like my head and was a completely separate entity than my body. And I've been very disconnected from my body for a very long time. So maybe as I've matured and gotten older, I can incorporate the two. And I'd love your feedback on how I can best do that. But I have definitely felt a separation. And so like my coach and I have been working on what can I do to feel more both in my body and then my body in this like secular physical plane. How can I feel that more? Because I'm so in my head.
Yes. Yes. Well, again, like the very obvious surface level activations you have here, there are two channels up here, and there are only three possible channels. You have two of them. They are both collective. If this one is tribal, the ones you have in your head are concerned about the collective, how
Oh,
you're
I just got
impacting and sharing what you know. So there's going to be a pressure there. The head center is a pressure center. And I had mentioned the sixth line, how anywhere you see a decimal point six, we had mentioned your Mercury, but you have a lot of six lines on your personality side, this column on the right-hand side, what you can recognize about yourself. So there's so much role model potential. And the thing about role model in human design is that energy takes time to mature and fully manifest.
Oh, wow. I'm getting chills.
And this happens during an individual's Chiron return. And for you, you're still, I looked it up, and right here we have May in 2031. So you're still marinating in all of this wonderful insight that you have. You're still acquiring all of the data. You're a very logical person. You're highly Virgo, very specific on the details. You're still acquiring all of those details for when this time happens. And that way, when we as a society need more of your sharing, you have that.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So that's, it's 2024. So that's what, 6, 7 years away. Hmm. Interesting. Well, okay. So maybe what's coming up in my mind now is like with this tribal community aspect and then having such a collective thing is like, does that enhance or does that speak to bringing in that tribal aspect and knowing what it takes to have somebody like be in a healing environment? Because the rest of the conceptual thing behind Orion Retreats is the collective and how do we expand the collective? How do we heal the collective? How do we like grow our potential? So does that mean that the tribal is going to help and healing that tribal aspect with and for the people and for myself will then help to influence how that's going to help the collective? I don't know if I'm saying that the way I want to.
Yes, yes. It has a lot to do, I think, with your Chiron in particular, not only as this sixth line personality being this role model, but just in general. I looked at your astrology chart outside of human design just because I like to incorporate the two. And your Chiron is in the sixth house in Taurus.
That's right. I was trying to remember I had one in Taurus. Yeah. The rest are in Virgo, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And Chiron is called the wounded warrior.
Mhm.
That archetype is when we enter this lifetime, there's a lot of work to be done for this energy to become something of value to others. So this is going to be a process for you to work through to then incorporate eventually. So as we're talking about Chiron return, I obviously wanted to add another layer of interpretation. So the insights here in the sixth house in Taurus, these are themes involving healing through structured, caring work environments. So fostering security through those meaningful efforts. But the focus here, like on healing, on how you're serving other people and creating environments, not just like supporting someone else that has created them, but you have this creative potential. So you will be the one creating
Mm.
largely with others, like this community aspect. So I just want to say that I think this largely will be successful if you take into account your own personal healing journey as well.
That's so beautiful. So when you're saying that, what comes to me too is like almost like because I believe in the microcosm versus the macrocosm and the personal healing that we do can affect the collective. But it's almost like looking at this and knowing what my life has been like and my experience. It's almost like screaming at me in this moment, saying like the personal healing that I do for myself as like a energetic blueprint will help the collective, not only as that role model, but because like we're all energy, we all influence each other. So as I heal my things and my personal journey, that will inform how I can help the collective too, or maybe because lead in a way that like I'm all about feminine empowerment. And so that's ties in closely with this. And what I do for myself, because of my experiences with like abuse and narcissistic relationships, then I can almost like help other people go through that to really empower women and affect the collective. It's
Yes.
it's
Uh,
almost like that's my blueprint to help others is how I can do it for myself. If that makes sense.
yes. And that's why I wanted to bring the Chiron energy in because, within the body graph, Chiron is not really talked about, but it's still such an important part, in everyone's life, especially as that role model, because you'll go through a transition May 2031 that you'll transform again. It's going to be another metamorphosis for you. One thing also to note about this channel The 59.6 is that since it's the only channel connecting your emotional intelligence with a strong creative motor, it's able to be the source and fuel for all other emotional waves coming out of the solar plexus. So, what that means is that you have the ability to empathize emotionally, to connect, to have this deep understanding of how others are feeling about things. Very early on, you mentioned how you can be a support for other people. This is the channel to do it. It builds great intimacy and it's able to be that source where different emotional waves, how they function, relates to your own experiences. So it's very beautiful.
Wow, that's almost the perfect line for a retreat facilitator, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. I chose right, Mom. I chose right.
Yes. And you know what? Like, if, collaborating with other people, I just wanted to share a little bit about my own Chiron. Yours is in the sixth house. Mine is in the 12th house in the
Ooh.
sign of Leo.
Mm.
Yours, I would interpret it as much more physical and sensory, having a stability there with Taurus.
Mhm.
Mine in Leo calls for creativity and spiritual exploration, like even deeper, that 12th house and the sun is shining there. So things can be illumined through time. So I think just the two of us working together with our wounded heroes or, wounded warriors, I think it's a great like collaboration.
That's
Just,
beautiful. Absolutely.
yes.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
A grounded yet visionary experience.
Hmm. Like that grounded visionary. With our powers combined.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, and do you see like specific ways that, maybe I have brought these new possibilities or, patterns in the way that you see things?
Yeah, I love, wait, let me say this. I love how empowered you are about something that is so spiritual. You bring it into a very like not woo-woo, not far out there, not like super like I know I've worked with a lot of metaphysical people and new age people over the course of living in Sedona, Mount Shasta, where I'm at. Like you bring such a very like solid and grounded understanding of this. And maybe it is that sun in the darker places because it's such a complex system that I don't know what I'm trying to say. Yes. I love that aspect of it because it's a very spiritual thing, but I love that you're just it's a very logical, grounded thing for you. And I love that. Maybe that's the part of the Taurus that's attractive to me, the Chiron and Taurus thing. But I just love how you present it. And I love how you work with people. You're very matter of fact and you don't get into the fluff of what a lot of people can get into. You're just presenting it as a science. I guess that's the part of it. It's like it's a science and it's not just like, the spiritual bypassing of, oh, that's just my human design, or like that's a poor
Mhm.
example, but like, just giving explanations for things. And I haven't got, had the honor to see too much of how you work with other people besides what I see in our one-on-one conversations and on your social media. But I can see where this is very valuable for people as a way to like you said, like make sense to people in a very like straightforward way. I don't know. You just have this beautiful way of communicating it that it makes sense.
Well, thank you. Well, I am a reflector or a type in the human design system. And so I'm able to kind of reflect these energies that I am encountering when I'm meeting with other people. And you have a lot of Virgo energy, so a lot of details, and I'm naturally kind of like that too. I value the logical way of communicating things, like that is important to me, but so is the abstract. And in your design, these two channels between the head center and the ajna here, this is the channel of logic, the 463, and this is the channel of abstraction, the
Oh,
6447.
really?
So it's almost like you have both the left hemisphere talents and way of processing things, but also the left and the right.
You know, that makes me feel like there's four of me. I've always teased that there's always been two of me. Like in my astrology, that my sun sign's Virgo, so we're like four different stellium planets. But then my rising sign is Scorpio, and you can't get more opposite than that. So I've always felt like there's two people there. Now you're saying that there's a head versus a body separation, and then the logic and the abstraction. Now there's six of me. There's definitely six of me at this point. And I feel all of that all at once too. Like it's all very accurate. Like I can be very logical, very systemic, very like linear, get to the point, like it helps serve me in my business. But what I've like the constant lesson that I've been learning is how to bring my emotional intelligence into it when working with other people, how to bring my intuition into it with the sacral response that I have, and then how do I bring creativity from like the creative side of like what are we creating ultimately and bring that into like this creative like it's got to mean that, yeah, what I'm creating is a blueprint of this chart, essentially. Like when they say
And
that you are your business or your business is a reflection of you, like all the things that I'm trying to create through this vehicle of Orion Retreats is a manifestation of this chart. It's so weird.
yes. And I am not even barely scratching the surface. It just got me excited. Like the more in depth I've gotten into your chart, the more I started to see and understand you a little bit better and what your intentions are, but also how you are the best person to spearhead Orion Retreats. And I say spearhead because there is a certain integrity that you have that creates strength within the structure that you've made. And that is a force. You know, I
Mm,
didn't want to say fierce, but it's more, and I use the word multifaceted. You're a person that has many different components, you know, so you can say, oh, I have six sides to me, you know, but you're still this holistic person. So that is such a gift, you know, when we talk about split definitions, and that just means that you have one section here and another there. Tremendous wisdom can be brought in how you're able to bring those energies together.
mm,
For you, it could be so many different ways with your actual expression. A lot of these connection points are through the actual throat. So,
mm.
depending on who you are with or what the transits are doing, you're able to express things in very dynamic ways when the stars align and things do connect in ways that spark these magical moments.
Wow.
One thing, Lauren, like a lot about this chart is patience.
It's funny. I want everything now.
Having an emotional authority, like it's such a blessing, but with it comes the need to allow these waves to process,
Mm.
allow this emotional well to calm and settle and show you what is deep within that knowing.
That might explain what just happened the last few days, like I was telling
I
you
think
about.
it did. Yes, that was your solar plexus, this very rich, almost volatile, because it's going through so much evolution within our species right now. So if you have constant activated life force there, there's going to be a lot of different things going on. That will be in the recording, so you'll be able to read through all of this text.
Wow.
I had mentioned this channel is half red. This is something that is half unconscious for you. So that is still functioning under
Mm.
the surface, no matter what. So there's going to be maybe even a greater need to use time to bring clarity. It might not ever reach full illumination for you, but the more time that passes for many things, the deeper understanding you'll have, wisdom you'll have to move forward with your decision.
Amazing. So what you're saying is need to continue being the CEO of my company. Sometimes I think I want to like bring somebody else in to just run everything and I can just be like the visionary, but like so much of what you're saying is in my chart is the creation. I can't be that separated from creating it and having yeah, I can have help and I can have like yeah, a leadership team. This is just telling me like if I meant to build what is being like channeled through me because it's not coming from me. It's not like,
Mm.
oh, this is a great idea, this is a great idea. It's a very much like you are building this we have chosen you to build this, and whether you like it or not, here it comes. And so that can be really overwhelming, but at the same time, like if you're saying what you're saying through this, then I am the only person that can create it in the way that's being asked, from source and from creation.
Yes, and there can be a support system
Mhm.
for you. The left angle cross of dominion. The left angle part of this term means that it does involve other people. It's transpersonal. Let's see. It's not so much dominant, but it's your visions that you have and your realization that there is so much benefit to those that need this. And you can see that clearly with your activations within your mental, like the third eye, what you are receiving from source, and then how you're able to create that,
Mm.
So yes and no. I think, I wouldn't be opposed. I don't think being a silo or accepting no support or like minimal support, I think people can support you if you would be open to that.
Well, that goes back to the tribal thing, is like if that's what I'm creating with other people, that just shows my chart how much I also need that. Like I struggle being a lone wolf sometimes, and I think, oh, that's the only way I can get things done. But it's reminding me that I do feel supported and amongst people. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Well,
Yeah.
and you have this role model energy. So you're going to have this perspective that is a bit more objective and a bit more able to be a judge about what is going on. And not everyone has that kind of profile, so we would say, So keep that in mind too, that you are going to have a viewpoint during this whole endeavor where you can see much more about what is going on. There are other people that may be better with actually experimenting with some of these things,
Hmm.
networking a bit more, or so there are different profiles that could support you for sure, but you will have like this role model, objective viewpoint, and it's going to keep coming up as you age.
Okay.
You're not even at the point where you can really get your hands dirty again and use all of that wisdom, but that time is coming.
That's both encouraging and discouraging. The patience part is like I have a 10-year plan that I want done in year one. I know I'm in year four, but it's still like, and then at the same time, I love the fact that I feel like I'm in my 40s now. I start to feel like an adult, but it's nice to know that my midlife, my big thing,
Mhm.
and stepping into this fully is not here yet, because that's exciting, because that means that it's going to be successful, and that means it's going to be what I want it to be. It just takes that extra time, but that's okay too.
Yes. Patience, like I said, is one of the big things also in your design, at least at this point in time. It might not always be that way. I heard you mention struggle, and there is something within your body graph that has spoken to me about struggle in particular. And actually, it's something, again, that kind of comes out within our relationship. So the
Right.
neat thing about human design is you can kind of overlap two charts and see where there are connection points, where there are dominant energies, where there are compromise energies, and where there are companionship energies. And so you and I actually have what's called an electromagnetic connection. And when we are in aura together, and I consider this being an aura with you, your consciousness is, more or less synced in with mine as we're engaging in real time. So when that happens, both of our root centers and both of our splenic centers become activated because I provide this gate 38, which is on the other side of this gate 28 that you have. So when they sync up, there's an electromagnetic spark that sparks into life both of those energy centers.
What does that mean?
So this channel, this connection pathway here, the 3828, is called the channel of struggle. And this is an energy that is a fighter spirit. It's fighting for what you believe in, and you're going to encounter struggles with that. It's a part of what's called individual circuitry. And the emphasis when you're talking about individual circuitry is a sense of empowerment. So, how we're able to empower each other when we're together, and how there can be a common effort to move forward in our struggles.
Not struggles with each other. I don't think I've ever had a conflict with you.
But it's just like, I like to put it within the context of fighting for what you believe in, like you're really believing in me and my reflections by design. I'm really believing in you and like Orion Retreats. And so when we come together, this channel of struggle is kind of a pressure. This root center is a pressure center connecting with this deep primal intuition, very in the moment intuition in an empowering way. So that's one thing about both of our charts that I wanted to point out. So
That's fascinating. And I think that that really does play out because we both, I mean, we don't have to say it publicly, but you and I know of what we've gone through to get these things, get our visions, like, yeah, out there and go,
to have this
great.
call
You know,
down to
oh, to
the
have
wire.
this call even, yes.
I was struggling down to like the minute before I hit record.
Should we not do this? We've rescheduled like twice, I
Yeah.
think. Well, last time, it makes up for the last time because I was like, I showed up like half in pajamas. I'm like, oh, is that today? I'm sorry. I think that was during like that Friday or Thursday that I was just
The
completely out of control.
snow blizzard.
Yeah, that took it out of me. And funny now
Yeah.
that the sun's shining, that's probably why I feel better. But anyway, but yeah, but even like this whole retreat, collaboration that we're working on, we've both had a lot of conviction behind it and we've needed that. And I think it's beautiful that all the things that you're creating right now is just like, I believe in that. I think that's awesome. Thank you for believing in me too and for knowing where I'm going with things. I think that's a really beautiful overlap. Thank you. It's
You're
honoring.
welcome. Yes. So that being said, I did want to dive into this 28 in particular about your chart. It's in an undefined center this time. So, very high level. That just means that it is receptive to energies. Like I had mentioned with our connection, it goes between being activated and not. It can be adaptable, but it can also be more susceptible to the energies of the people around it. When you and I are together, we feel a sense of empowerment, struggling. But then when we're not in aura together anymore, it doesn't feel exactly the same way. So there's good and, like the mind can get hung up with these themes sometimes, the pressure to get things done. But I'm prefacing all of this by saying that because this might not be an energy that you have available to you 24/7 all the time, but it's definitely familiar to you.
That's the empowerment. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly, but even more specific, this one is called Preponderance of the Great, the game player. Again, in the sixth role model line.
Let's see. Blaze of glory.
Blaze of glory. Yes.
That explains what happened the last 3 days. I was like out. And then I was telling her before the call. And then like I can come in and I'll have like 3 really highly productive days and then it's gone again. Is that what this is talking about?
It could be it's regeneration, renewal, no matter what the price, a deep intuitive drive to win or to succeed, to have the struggle be worthwhile, no matter what the cost. The game player. Here you have access to both that exalted position, the upward facing arrow, as well as what's called the detriment position. So this is kind of the other side of the coin, or the less optimal way of expressing, or just without any kind of attachment. It just can be played out. It doesn't have to be good or bad, but there is or can be potential for self-destruction.
Yeah,
So
back
a
in low key.
fear of defeat,
Yeah.
profound hopelessness in times of struggle. So those are also experiences that come with this renewal.
Hmm. I can definitely go down into the depths for sure. I have to really like force myself to like pull myself out of it. I don't let myself go there very often, but I can see that. And when I was a teenager, obviously, like Seattle, emo, like it was like a thing. It was a vibe for that area.
It
I
could
could
have very much played out in a different way before your first Saturn return. So before you turned like 30 years old, roughly, it could have been very different. But since it is connected to that splenic center, it's the intuition to know when to fight and when not to fight. So I think this pairs beautifully with that peacemaker
Mhm.
energy that you have within your emotional system too, because it's not like you avoid confrontation at all costs. You're able to confront when it's needed, and you have this awareness to know when that is.
I love that because there's definitely the times when like I will choose peace over conflict, but it does not mean that I don't want the conflict or that I'm not willing to go there. I just value my peace more in that moment, but I don't let it go very often. But when I do, like for better for worse, and I hopefully haven't hurt anyone, but I can like really like, you know, really come
Mm.
from that place of like standing my ground and saying what needs to be said. Again, I'm trying to find that balance of like, how do you feel empowered like in the day to day, like without feeling like you have to completely have all your guard up or your walls up, but
Mm.
also like, yeah, be empowered enough that you can stand your ground. Maybe this is part of it too, but I do tend to attract a lot of people that try and want to push me around. And I have to learn the balance of like what's appropriate for how do I stand up, then how do I actually like not be the aggressor, but be a little bit more like, hey, versus like just moving around it as the peacemaker. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does. And if you, I'm feeling called to go into more of the unconscious parts of your design for that, if that's okay.
sure. Yeah.
So, as you were talking, themes of the ego were coming up for me. And this has to do with your sense of not only sense of worth, but also your drive, your willpower to do things. And this center for you is undefined. So, again, it's in that receptive stage. And I wanted to bring up what is called your incarnation cross, that left angle cross of dominion. And where we are getting this info is from your Sun Earth on your what's called your personality side and your Sun Earth on your design side. And this design side is what is, yeah, that unconscious part of who and what we are. It's still going on, but it's just kind of more of a hazy recognition about what it is. So your Sun Earth here, they're in gate 64 and 63 within your crown, your head, both activated, both very, yeah, pressure to think, to come up with very intriguing, structured, ideas and everything. But then here on your unconscious side, we have a 45 and an undefined throat and a 26 and an undefined ego center. So this more
Mhm.
deeply ingrained energy that you have is coming from these undefined centers. So not having a consistent way to express yourself and not having a consistent way to use your willpower. So when you combine those two together, this influx way you can assert to manifest, to express your drive and your sense of worth. These are two big imprints. All four of these imprints are very strong. And so to have half of them more under the surface in an inconsistent way, that might cause some, like, definitely for your active mind to wonder why that is, what's going on, how can I improve that, how can I make that not a thing, you know, versus trusting what's going on more so down here with your emotional intelligence and realizing things like that might take some time
Mhm.
and not feeling a pressure to have a direction, not having you might always feel the pressure, but not necessarily acting on that pressure to prove your worth or to express these great visions that you have. in a way that will provide direction for yourself, for the people that you're working with, you know. So all of these white centers can potentially make things a little bit imbalanced and hold more weight than they necessarily should. Where you're feeling resistance, it could be a matter of questioning how you're expressing
Mhm.
your worth, the direction you feel. This is the direction center, feeling a pressure to have this intuitive knowing about what is the moment to moment thing that you should be doing.
Mhm. But what that's showing me, and it very much resonates with how I feel on a conscious basis. But then what you're saying is trust that sacral response. The future isn't planned yet. And if I'm trying to trust my intuition or trust my ego or trust my voice about where this should go, ultimately it doesn't matter because I'm creating it as I go along, not following a subscribed path. Is that what that means? Kind of?
You're creating it as you go along, and more things are becoming illumined through this process of emotional baking, for lack of better word, or that solar plexus is such a deep well. It's our newest form of awareness as a species, and it's still not even under like done being under construction.
Huh. That's fascinating.
So you have this depth available for you, but it's rarely in the moment.
Mm, yeah. My head pretty much is in charge of the moment, but like that I don't know how I feel about something until I've had ample time to process it, or I know what I want, or I know what I like, I know what my emotions are once I experience the opposite of it. I feel like I've changed my business model or adapted it based on a response of how I feel about something external. Like I have a huge strong vision and I know all the aspects that I want, but as I'm going towards it, I do have a very emotional response to different things. And if even sometimes we're like, yes, I want this, and I get to that point, if it's a no, it's a very emotional no. It's like, oh, I thought I wanted that, but I guess I don't anymore. Or if
Mm.
something comes along and I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel it's very visceral, like sacral. It's tied in with my emotions, and my emotions will tell me to do something versus like, oh, but I was going to do it like this. But no, like that external stimuli of something that triggers an emotional response is the direction I go with it.
As a guide here, if you're feeling at a high point in your wave, that is something to take note of
Hmm.
and to put it in your mental archive of, okay, I have a data point that I felt this way, and give yourself a little bit of time.
Okay.
The high points in your wave are just as important to experience as the low points. And as you're moving through that, when you feel that you've experienced all the highs and all of the potential lows involved in the decision, then you have a much bigger, more comprehensive idea of how your body and your being with your mind can move forward with it or not. You know, the mind is such an important part of you. You know, it's not like you can turn that off, but
Much as I try.
yeah, well, and the thing with the mind, it rarely does operate in the present moment. It's somewhere in the future, it's somewhere in the past. It's thinking about the patterns that brought you here. You know, it's thinking about what if these things in the future. So, like, you have these emotional waves that bring tremendous wisdom, and you have the ability to time travel with your mind. So, yeah, being in the present moment, that's all that exists, right? That's not like a human design thing. That's just like my own understanding. But when it comes to decision making, just giving yourself a little bit of extra time to have your emotional awareness process.
I love this. Thank you. You are hired to be my business advisor from here on out. Absolutely. Emotional processing and awareness. I mean, that's a whole new product line for you. I really think that you would be so good at providing business guidance using the human design.
I think I would be too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to do with, I want to create like these worksheets for my Etsy or something. It doesn't have to be Etsy. I could do it on LinkedIn. That's probably, more sensible to go through as a business owner, just like self-paced, whatever. But also, Lauren, with your design, like so much of this is creating containers for other people, you
Mhm.
know, like how your energy anchors the participants that you're working with, you know?
That's in my chart, really? That's exactly like the retreat model, really.
Well, you know, I mentioned this emotional authority you have and this channel bringing in a source energy for emotions. So if you're able to embody this role model energy of how that really operates within a person with such a mind active, you know, design, then you can really work with people in the moment. You know, you would have a great outer authority
Hmm.
for others.
I think there's something that's not, I'm trying to process that through my head probably, but something that's not fully sinking in with that and what that means. The
Like
emotional
the
intelligence plus
container,
that creative s- solar plexus one. I don't know.
like how this is the source. So the sacral center is the body's largest motor, and there's only one energetic pathway between that motor and our emotional system. So this kind of fuels the output that can be processed through the wave through any of these gates. So we have the 37, the 22, the 36, and the root also plays a part, but this is the only channel of its kind that is so creative. It's kind of like at that ground zero point where things are sparked into life, where that juice of your generator is fueling this emotional process.
Hmm.
And when you're with other people, that's impacting other people.
Okay, that makes more sense. And that's a very presence oriented thing. That you can't think through that. You can't plan for that in the future. You can't, that's all like a power that's only accessible really in the present too.
Well, that's a good question. This is a part of the tribal circuitry. So the way the emotions operate through tribal circuitry is actually kind of like a racket where it comes out sometimes unexpectedly. Like in the moment, you might be good in an interaction with someone, and then you depart from them and you process what was said, and then you kind of get emotional about it. Like maybe something kind of offended you, but in the moment it did not register as being an offense, but then afterwards it did. And then so the next time you see the person, you're going to have this emotional response towards them that might not have had been there before. So it's kind of a ricochet-ish kind of like, oh, it's here all of a sudden kind of emotional wave.
That makes sense because like I said, it takes me a while to process things. Like I'll have conversations, lengthy conversations with people, and then like 2 days later, okay, so then like I fully process either what they said or what I said or the whole idea, whatever. And especially in conflicts too, I think I immediately go into like peacemaker. How do I get my nervous system out of this? And then later, then I maybe find my more empowerment and or things I should have said better, but then I come back and process it more because I definitely don't. I don't always
Well,
get things right away emotionally. It takes me a while.
and you know, keep in mind the channels you have between your crown and your ajna. There's a full black connection for both of them. So what that means is there's a fully conscious recognition about how that feels for you, how that plays out in your life regularly or not, you know. So, and down here, this is going to be a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more of a foreign connection, at least for your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, and that's exactly the point.
Both of your sacral gates are red, you know, and typically I don't spend a whole lot of time on the red just because the right is so like fascinating and a lot of, you know, keynotes to hit or, you know, things to bring up about what you're conscious over. But it is, you know, something of note. I we can take a peek at your 42. I did not take a peek at your 42 before this, but it feels right to bring it up now. A natural and instinctive nurturing of others.
Oh,
So the gate of growth is energy that makes you always want to finish what you've begun.
yeah, that's definitely
And
true.
this is an unconscious element, so keep that in mind. It's in an exalted position, this moon, which interestingly, this is not really practical, but it has to do kind of with the gravity of your aura.
Mm. Hmm. I always wonder if, well, just because my own traumas, like I tend to like maybe it's that hermit part, but I pull back from people as equally as I want to like completely nurture and help and support other people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, this, the 59, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
The 59 is the unconscious part of that gate of the channel of mating. And yeah, I mean, it's like a very, apparently it's a very sexual energy, but here we have brotherhood and sisterhood. So this is more of a platonic expression of that.
Yeah. And
Um,
sexuality is nothing more than like expression of life force energy again, too. So it's very much of like helping my brothers and sisters, of humanity be empowered to
Companionship.
heal. Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is also another electromagnetic connection you and I have, just FYI. You have the 42, I have the 53 on the other side. And the connections between the root and the sacral are actually like what's called format energies. And they energetically influence kind of the rest of your body graph, especially if you have a full connection here. But this one has to do with cycles, like where there are clear beginnings, clear middles, clear endings to things, and you have like the starting of it, and I have like the finishing of it. But the way these play out is like sometimes it's hard for me to finish, and sometimes it's hard for you to start,
Ah,
weirdly.
interesting. And that goes back to that last one. I always want to finish what I start. And I
Yes.
am sometimes very slow to start, but once I do, then the momentum comes. But it's always that initial, like almost
Yeah.
like procrastination or like laziness, or like I know how much generative energy this is going to take me. So I'm going to put it off to the last moment possible until I get into that blaze of glory to come in and get it done. Then I know it's going to be done. I don't know. It's weird.
Very good keynoting. Impressive.
It all comes together full circle.
Yes. Yeah, and it's hard for me to finish things. I have so many projects and ideas of what I want to do. Like my business mentor, I'm like coming up with something new each time I talk to him, and he's like, Julie, this is great, but practically speaking, how are you going to actually make this happen?
That's where you need the executor. You are a visionary and you need someone on your team to delegate. Here's the idea. Now go make it happen. Whether that for you is an executive assistant, COO, eventually, once you get to your own CEO status of your company. Like, I feel like that is actually, I would love to have that because I feel like my chart is telling me I have to be both the CEO and COO, like the visionary and the executor if I want to create this. But you at least like love that for you that you can be like, I know what I want. Here's what it needed to happen. Go and do that and have that trust that somebody else can do that because they can finish it up in the way that you want to. I think
I would love to be in a place where it would financially make sense. And well, it takes hard work, I guess, and you wearing multiple hats to get to that point. And I don't mean you, but like anybody, any self-employed person. Yeah.
But I think the biggest, opportunity and advantage for you is like, I can see you. I know we haven't like talked about this very much, but I can see you like building your courses and having an online program and being like a more like public figure of a human design, like influencers, so to speak. And then you have like a manager to help you on the tech side and help with the implementation of things. But I can definitely see you getting to that level of just like ultimate, like six-figure CEO of Reflections by Design. You have other coaches underneath you and all that stuff. We've talked about that a little bit. You can have both, my dear. I love just like your stamina and your resilience to like holding true to your vision too, because I think that that's where our greatest strengths come together. It's like we both are women on a mission, and it's and not in that 3D, oh, drive, 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 but it's very like, no, we know what we're here for, and we're coming together to make it happen. And I love that. So
We both have undefined egos, so it's not going to be like a drive, drive, drive. I am very excited about our retreat at the end of June.
yes.
I will be the facilitator for human design educational courses. I'm going to put to use my certification with the International Human Design School, and I'm partnering with you and your expertise with making a beautiful retreat experience. So I'm just very excited for that. if you want to learn more, of all of you viewing, I'm going to link a website on my description, and then you can just follow that. I also have a ebook embodying your aura type. It includes yoga poses, intentions that you can do with a meditation candle, all of those nice things. And I add some of my reflector perspective as well. So grab your copy, also down below linked. And thank you for joining us.